What if the history you learned in school only told half the story? We've all heard the grand narratives of the Civil War, the famous generals, the pivotal battles, the political speeches. But what about the hundreds of thousands of soldiers who were barely old enough to shave? This is the story of the Civil War's forgotten army, the underage boys who lied to enlist, the brutal reality they faced, and the diseases that were far deadlier than any bullet. Prepare to discover the human cost of America's bloodiest conflict from the perspective of those who were never supposed to be on the front lines. Forget the romanticized portraits of hardened veterans. Many of these fighters were teenagers seeking escape from farm life, lured by the promise of a short, glorious adventure. They stood shoulder to shoulder with men, yet they carried a secret in their shoes and a desperate courage in their hearts. They experienced a war of rampant sickness, of excruciating wounds, and of a discrimination that persisted even for those fighting for freedom itself. This is the untold, gritty truth of the young souls who fought, suffered, and died in the fields of the 1860s. While viewing this content, remember to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us grow together. Let us rewind to the 1860s. This decade witnessed the Civil War, which involved 2.7 million troops fighting in more than 237 named battles, in addition to innumerable minor, yet no less savage, engagements. However, not every one of these combatants was a sturdy, bearded man with a family and enslaved workers awaiting his return. In truth, approximately 420,000 were boys from the North under the age of 17, while the Confederacy fielded nearly 100,000 soldiers below the age of 15. These young men were not prosperous plantation owners, and the vast majority did not hold any slaves. As a matter of fact, historical records indicate that numerous adolescent soldiers on each side held largely neutral views regarding the institution of slavery. What motivated them to join? In short, they were keen to break free from the drudgery of agricultural existence. Abraham Lincoln's first request for a mere 90-day enlistment period made participation seem like a short-lived escapade. Fight for a handful of months, come back a local hero. What the Northern volunteers did not foresee was the conflict enduring for years. Following the Union's loss in the 1862 Peninsula Campaign, which pushed them away from Richmond, the Confederate Army moved north toward Washington. This success made it seem as if the South was building decisive momentum. It was at this juncture that Lincoln called for an additional 300,000 Union troops, now stipulating a 3-year service obligation. A very small number of those 300,000 would live to see the conclusion of that grueling term. How committed were these underage boys to enlisting? They were driven to manipulate the regulations. Because Army policy required recruits to be a minimum of 18 years old, some would inscribe 18 on the bottom of a shoe or hide a slip of paper bearing the digit inside their boot. When questioned if they were older than 18, they could honestly state, "Yes, I am over 18, literally standing on it." If that ruse did not work, they would just falsify their age. For anyone who suffered a severe injury in combat, the prospects of survival were slim. Picture loading your musket, managing just one deliberate shot every half-minute, only to be hit in the abdomen by an enemy round. During the 1860s, critically wounded men on both sides were frequently abandoned where they lay, with minimal chance of receiving adequate medical attention. Injured soldiers would often fall in the fields or feign death where they collapsed, praying that a medical wagon might somehow get to them. If they were prepared, they had a bottle of whiskey to numb the pain of their wounds. The most fortunate might come across a horse-drawn ambulance carrying the means to dress their injuries. But if no ambulance could safely enter the active battlefield, their outlook was dire. Let's be perfectly clear. Surviving a musket ball fired from a Springfield Model 1861 was challenging on its own. Yet illness proved to be significantly more lethal. You had a fighting chance of recovering from a gunshot, but sickness or septic infection in what turned into America's most gruesome war typically resulted in death. Reflect on this fact. Dysentery and diarrhea alone killed 44,000 Union men, a toll equal to 10 battles the size of Gettysburg. Disease, not enemy action, was the primary cause of death. A Union soldier named Theodore Garish recounted the appalling circumstances. The most terrible part of our situation was the pervasive disease. Men not used to the environment, the elements, and the food found every aspect opposed to their previous lives. Sickness propagated quickly due to the fact that surgical instruments were not cleaned. Over the course of the war, doctors carried out 60,000 amputations, and a minimum of 25% of those individuals died from ensuing infections. We all understand the root causes of the Civil War, yet few appreciate the Confederacy's paradoxical position on black Americans. While dreading uprisings, Southern commanders generally restricted black men to support duties. Solely in the war's last hopeless weeks did the Confederacy entertain the idea of recruiting slaves without even promising them liberty. After the Union started mustering black troops, Confederate President Jefferson Davis vowed to enslave or put to death any who were captured. A plan to equip slaves was ridiculed by Southern leaders until March 13, 1865, when the Confederate Congress hesitantly passed it, too late to have any effect. The war concluded in less than a month. In periods away from combat, soldiers' days were filled with drills and monotony. When not shooting muskets or resting, they cleaned their rifles, rehearsed battle lines, performed sentry duty, or marched for miles. As Private Theodore Garish observed, most began their service completely untrained. We had received no drill. Our drummers beat without harmony, each following his own tempo, causing our unit to trip through disorganized efforts to march together. Even for black soldiers demonstrating their valor, prejudice was still routine in the early 1860s, notwithstanding their service for the Union. The Union only commenced enrolling black soldiers in 1862, with their numbers increasing after the Emancipation Proclamation became official on January 1, 1863. Although they fought equally, pay inequalities continued as per the 1862 Militia Act. Black privates were paid $10 per month, from which a $3 charge for uniforms was subtracted, whereas white privates were granted $13 along with a $3.50 stipend for clothing. For any infantryman in battle, having to load and shoot a musket every 20 seconds made utter fatigue unavoidable. The rifled muskets employed by both armies weighed close to 10 pounds and had a kick so powerful it could injure a shoulder after sustained firing. Confederate infantryman Sam R. Watkins remembered, "Upon rolling up my sleeve, I discovered my arm black and blue and swollen from elbow to shoulder, painfully tender. I had discharged my weapon 120 times that day." Excessive heat added to the difficulty. Watkins observed, "My rifle became so hot that the gunpowder would flash as I poured it. Frequently I was forced to exchange my musket for one belonging to a dead soldier." Away from the fighting, men held on to their ability to read and write as a crucial connection to normality. They consumed any available newspapers and penned letters home constantly, even if numerous men found it hard to describe the true terror of warfare. Union Captain Charles Carroll Maury wrote of a narrow escape. "After taking a shot at an enemy soldier, I turned to prepare my next round and spotted another aiming directly at me. I ducked right as his musket ball passed over my head, then rose to complete loading, feeling grateful to be alive when countless others had died." During the lulls between engagements, training exercises, and cleaning their arms, corresponding with loved ones served as a vital escape. Maury's letter conveys the strange reality. "I am uncertain how to begin, but I feel blessed to have survived such bloodshed." So, could you have withstood these realities of war? Let us know your opinion in the comments and discover further hidden accounts in our additional Heretic Histories content.